We've spent a long time on Volume 2. Hey, it's Romania Black, but today we're ending it. Oh my gosh, we're ending Volume 2 and we're going to gear up for Volume 3. I cannot tell you how excited I am. I'm a little bit sad to end Volume 2, a little bit sad, but I really have liked Volume 2 an awful lot. And so I'm really excited moving on to Volume 3. I'm glad that I have both Volume 3 and 4, and Volume 5 is going to be coming out later this year. So I'm like, okay, good. I've got the volumes because I like having them on hand. It's been a lot of fun going back through the actual print version after I read the chapters before the discussion. It's been a lot of fun. And I'll be honest, I think I'm going to start a new tradition. I've been this week, as I've been grading papers, I told people in the Discord that I have been going back and rewatching season 1 of the donghua now that I'm ending the volume 2. And I know a lot of people are like, how could you watch the donghua while grading papers? It actually works out really good because it's white noise. So I don't feel like I have to focus on the screen. But if I look up and see a part, I'm like, oh, I'll watch that for a second and then I'll go back to grading. So it actually works out pretty good, oddly enough. The way that my focus is, I can tune it out if I want to, but if I want to pay attention, it's great. Sometimes if I watch shows in English, I feel like I have to pay attention to it. And with this, it works out wonderful. But no, rewatching, I'm about 3 episodes in. Rewatching it, yeah, how crazy it is to see the moment in episode 1 where Xie Lian meets up with Feng Xin and Mu Qing again, and they're both just looking at him, and there's all this history that we, the audience, don't even know about, and we're just getting a taste of it in this volume. So I have a feeling that I think until we get season 2 of the donghua out, I think my tradition is going to be that while I wait, every time I get to a new volume, I'm going to rewatch season 1 and see if I notice new things. And then once season 2 comes out, I'll probably do the same with it. But yeah. So I do have some comments before we start this. We're doing chapters 66 through 68. So we're finishing it up. And then I have the song that was in the season 2 trailer with the lyrics that I was sent through the Discord. And we're going to look at those and react to it. So I'm pretty excited for that. But yeah, I want to talk about a couple comments before we start this session. I got all prepared tonight. I have cherry cola because cherries have been very prevalent in this chapter so far. Some cherry Coke. I got my shirt is very love themed because it's Hua Cheng and Xie Lian, even though Xie Lian doesn't know how much Hua Cheng is like love at first sight. But with these comments, Stacy pointed out something in the Discord that I was like, oh, okay. Stacy was asking, they were like, why did you say Mu Qing got the guards? And by this point, y'all have probably commented on YouTube. But Stacy was like, why did you say that Mu Qing helped get the parade back together? And I'm like, well, that's what the book says. Like the online translation, the web fan translation I have, the web link, it says that. And then the book says that. And Stacy was like, well, I have the actual Mandarin translation. And it says that Feng Xin helped get everybody back on track because it wouldn't make sense for Mu Qing to do it. Stacy was like, the guards don't like Mu Qing, so why would they listen to Mu Qing in the moment? But they would listen to Feng Xin because he's Xie Lian's bodyguard. And I was like, oh, that does make a lot more sense. So for some reason, and then Couscous actually said the Russian translation says Feng Xin as well. So I'm like, so for some reason, the English translation said that Mu Qing put the parade back together and back on track when the mask fell off and he grabbed Hua Cheng, whereas the original translation actually says it was Feng Xin. So good to know. Blunders can happen. And so we were just debating and theorizing that since the person that did the fan translation is actually the one that did the official translation, it was probably just an error that was oversight and they just didn't catch it. And that's fine, but that does change it a little bit in that it does, before it was like, oh, well, Mu Qing tried to get the parade back on track despite what everybody thought about him. No, that was Feng Xin. Makes much more sense with Feng Xin's character. I was like, oh, okay. That makes much more sense. But yeah, thank you, Stacy, for clarifying that. Good on you. SQQLBH314 talked about how Qirong's prince title, Xiao Jing, actually the Xiao part is just a little honorific. It just means little, kind of like sunny or boy. Kind of like Zhao Ying a little bit. I suppose it means about the same thing. But Zhao Jing means little mirror. And I was like, oh, I love the idea that Qirong, that he's a mirror to Xie Lian, because it goes back to right before we have the flashback where Qirong's like, you're exactly like me. You just don't realize that you put on this veneer in front, but you're no different than I am. And I'm like, just the idea, the symbolism of Xie Lian thinking that he's no better than Qi-Rong and the same as him, and it being a reflection of him through Qi-Rong. Mwah, just brilliant. I love that symbolism. It's great. But yeah. But apparently that was it. And then also, I was a little bit sad because SQQBLH, they were like, well, Hua Cheng probably doesn't have the face disease because it's not because it would be contagious. And I'm like, let me theorize, damn it. It's okay. I like theorizing for fun. And so that kind of was like, well, womp womp. I guess it's not. I guess I don't have to theorize that about it anymore. But please don't confirm or deconfirm my theories. Let me be ignorant. Because I was going to have fun theorizing about it, and now it's kind of like, I guess I don't have to talk about it anymore. So, but please don't, because even though that seemed quite obvious, I'm afraid that some people are going to start like deconfirming and confirming theories, and then it will spoil something or it will ruin the surprise of something. And I get really upset about that because I'm like, it makes me not want to read comments, and I want to read your comments. So please don't do that. But anyway, Goldmund talked about how a ritual dedicated to Xie Lian hiding his face, huh? So, okay, Goldmund said, so, this ritual is of the martial god hiding their face, that only the heavenly emperor is allowed to see them. And Goldmund and I are on the same page. He's Team Hua Lian, like me. He was like, that's kind of odd. You have Xie Lian, who's participating in a ceremony where he has to hide his face, and only Junwu gets to see it. And then Hua Cheng's like, nah, and like rips the mask off, right? And okay, I will say this. I've seen the comments for chapters 58 and 59. There were a lot of Junwu stans in the comment. And y'all, #Taurus Life. I hear you. I have nothing against Junwu, but I do have thoughts about him. And I've asked in several videos, just let me have my thoughts. I've come around. I am much softer on my opinions of Junwu than I was at the start of this volume. I have grown a lot softer towards Junwu than I was in the first chapters. I have. But if people try to be like, well, you just don't understand him. Taurus Life, you're just gonna make me. It's like the Michael Scott meme. I told everybody in the Discord, it was like the Michael Scott meme where it's like, I'm just gonna hate him harder. That's my one thing. I am very stubborn, and if people try to be like, oh, well, you should like this character, I'm like, I won't. and then I just hate them harder. So I just ask you, please. I understand. I am probably off base. There's probably going to be like a whole story about Junwu in Volume 7 that's going to make him the most likable character in the series, and we've not got there yet. And that's fine. When I get there and I'm proven woefully wrong, as I have been many times in the past, I will apologize to you all and be like, you guys were right. I was wrong. But until we get to that point, I'm going to stick to my guns, and if I don't like a character, I'm going to stick to it until I change my mind. So it was just really funny because there was a lot of people that were like, you're being too hard on Junwu, and I was like, I'll be even harder on him. And I mean no disrespect. I totally am fine. There's some characters that I like that I'm sure people don't like, and it's totally cool. If you love Junwu, more power to you. There's some people in the Discord that simp for Junwu, and I'm here for it. Like, simp for what you want to simp, but just don't try to change my opinions because it won't work. But it was really funny. Goldman was like, he knows what's up. I had a lot of fun with the comments, and I was just like, man, people are like all up for Junwu, and I'm being mellow. I'm being as nice as I can be. I could be worse. No. Qian Fong talks about Feng with his gynophobia. Qian Fong, I laughed so hard at this comment. They were like, so that whole gynophobia and like fearing women thing. So I wonder how that went with the whole general dick period. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, like all these girls coming to his temple. He was probably like, get out. Knowing that now, it's kind of hilarious because yeah, you have Nan Feng, who's his deputy, who seems kind of shy around women too. I feel like Feng Shen's like, do you want to be my deputy god? Do you fear women? Okay. He just does this around Ling Wen all the time and just keeps away from her. I really hope that's the case, right? That was so funny, Qian Fong. That comment. It's back with chapters 58 and 59. Go read it. It's hilarious. I love it. Molly MIGH. I really liked this point that, yeah, up until this point in the series, we kind of get the impression that Qi-Rong's gonna be like a big boss battle and like one of the main bosses at the end. No, he's like a tick. He's like a leech. He's just something that like sticks to you and you're like trying to pick it off, right? But he keeps coming back for more. He's like a mosquito. Qi-Rong is kind of like just something that we have to deal with. Like, we've had to deal with it. Like, Xie Lian can't escape him in the act. Xie Lian can't escape him in the mausoleum. And now in the flashback, he's constantly a thorn in Xie Lian's side. And he's blood, he's family, so what do you do? So that was really funny. I liked that idea that Qirong is not the final boss. No, the final boss is that damn White Calamity, I'm pretty sure. Like, we're gonna save that for last because he's terrifying and I'm still afraid of him. I'm really worried that we're gonna get him, like, in volume 3 because it's only 3 years after all this that the White Calamity shows up and all hell breaks loose. So I'm, like, so intrigued. I want more White Calamity, but at the same time, I'm very nervous about the White Calamity, and I just don't want any spoilers. I just know that when we get to the White Calamity, I'm probably gonna freak out. So there's that. But yeah, so in any case, Xie Lian, though, it's really tragic because Molly pointed out that Xie Lian seems right now in the present time so non-sentimental. Like, aside from like having like a sword fetish, Xie Lian is not really sentimental towards anything. He can discard things without even thinking about it, which is a nice contrast to, like, you know, the hoarding and all the trinkets from his past. But then the one time that he gets extremely sentimental is about his mother. And I think that Molly points out a really good point. It's so jarring as an audience member because we've seen Xie Lian just cast things aside and not have a second thought about them. But the moment his mother gets brought up, he like clings to it. And it's like, whoa, this is not the Xie Lian we've been with the last volume and a half. So that was really, really cool and very tragic too, right? It's just so jarring. And then finally, Anime Annie talks about that, like, we were talking about where we think the donghua for season 2 would end when we finally get it at some point. And I liked Anime Annie's idea. It would be torture for the donghua onlys. It would be the ultimate torture is that you have season 2 ending with Qirong taking Feng Xin, slicing it down to kill Qirong, and then we cut to the sword slicing the ghost, and we see a young Xie Lian in the past. Roll credits, that's it. I was like, oh, that'd be perfect. It would create such a stir because the donghua onlys would be like, what do you mean that's it? And then a ton of people would go out and read the novel, and MXTX is laughing from behind her paywall, like, mwahaha. But I've talked enough. I really liked those comments. Y'all made my day. I get like a kind of like Qirong style enthusiasm about Junwoo, Team Junwoo versus Team Hua Cheng and all that it entails. But anyway, we're on the last part 27 of the book. This is technically part 18 of our journey through the novel, but because we've done a few parts together. But yeah, the last 3 chapters of volume 2, and I'm really, really excited. No Manhua chapter this week, sadly. I'm recording this a little bit ahead because I'm on holiday this week, so I am recording ahead. But we'll do a Manhua chapter to start out volume 3, so that'll be exciting. I'm excited about that. And we'll start at volume 3 with, if the Manhua chapter is correct, it's going to be Xie Lian showing up in Hua Cheng's lap. All about that. So that's going to be a fun time. Start volume 3 off right? But we need to get through these last 3 chapters. So when we last left off, they were interrogating little baby Hua Cheng, 10-year-old Hua Cheng, and Mu Qing has called him a liar, saying that he's homeless. Because Xie Lian was about to pack him up and take him to the mountains with him, and Mu Qing's like, now hold on a second. And then that's where the chapter ended. So we'll see, right? But I'm pretty excited, y'all, to see what's going to happen this chapter. I hope y'all are too. So we're going to start chapter 66 through 68 of Heaven Official's Blessing, and we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Chapter 66, to ascend is human, to fall is also human. Ooh, humans capable of falling and ascending. What do you mean? The homeless street urchins of the royal capital all run together in a gang, and they'd come to my neighborhood often to beg for food. I know all of them, but I've never seen this child before. Oh, calling him out. Who do they beg for food from? You? And you'd give it to him? Why is that a bad thing, Feng Xin? If they pester relentlessly, there's no other way. Oh. And Xie Lian's like, of course he'd want to laugh, like watching their banter back and forth. Besides, there's sewn patches on his clothes, judging by the needlework. It must have been done by a grown-up only just recently. So there's at least someone of age in his household. His family situation might not be the best, but he's definitely not a beggar. Oh, and Xie Lian naturally would not notice the details of the sewn-on patches, nor that it was done by adults. But Mu Cheng, his mom was a seamstress and he was an errand boy, so... Okay. But he says no. If he doesn't go back, his family must be worried sick for him. There's nobody. Oh. Kid, what the hell? Oh, Feng Shen, what the hell are you doing? Things were urgent earlier, so whatever, but you shouldn't you know better by now? This is the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince, do you understand? Oh. There's fighting at home and I got kicked out. I walked for a long time, but I've nowhere to go. So what now? If His Highness is troubled, he can be placed here in the palace and have a few attendants take care of him. He was afraid Qirong wouldn't drop the whole thing and would sneak out to cause trouble. Yeah, leaving Hua Cheng alone with Qirong is a bad idea. It's still best if I watch over him until his wounds are healed. It seems his family won't be able to look after him, unfortunately. Feng Shen, why don't you take care of the affected stalls toppled by Qirong and see if you can find out where his parents are and let them know so they don't worry. Okay. And she... Oh, Jenny, pick him up by the collar. You're wounded. Don't worry about that. Only one arm's broken. The other's fine. If both my arms were broken, I can still use my teeth to carry him by the collar and bring him up the mountain for you. Oh, Feng Shen. And Mu Cheng says, let me carry him. The fact that Hua Cheng was being offered to be carried up the mountain by Feng Shen and Mu Cheng both, and then ends up fighting them both later on. MXTX, what are you doing? The young child jumped off the bed. I can walk on my own. Oh, an expression filled with rejection. Spoke louder than words. The little kid had 5 broken ribs and a broken leg, but he was still lively as a dragon. Xie Lian didn't know whether to laugh or be concerned. They'll stop running around. The 3 of them left with a child in tow. The 3 of them, with a child in tow, left the palace. Since Qirong had caused havoc on the streets earlier and disturbed the townspeople, toppling a number of stalls, Xie Lian felt deeply guilty, having no face to meet any of the citizens. So the group snuck around, afraid to show their face, only using the back alleyways. The child was extremely docile in Xie Lian's arm. They told him to be quiet and uttered not a single sound. That brat kicked me yesterday, but look at him now. He really knows how to pick 'em. It's His Highness the Crown Prince. Of course he's more well-liked than most people. For some reason, even if he said something well-meaning, the words he used still made people feel uncomfortable. Feng Shen refused to acknowledge what he said. And after walking a while, he spoke up. No, I feel your highness shouldn't let anyone see you holding a strange child. What's the problem? You're the Crown Prince. Put the kid in the cart and pull it to go. Oh, just so we're clear, I will not pull that thing up the mountain! Mu Cheng's like, I ain't gonna be the one doing it. Nah. No one's asking you to. Oh, never mind, forget it. Maybe someone else needs that cart. Oh, and they noticed. Oh, no, because they've seen him without the mask. Oh, no. And they tried to catch him. Oh. To cut short the God-pleasing martial ceremony was an ominous sign of misfortune. And it was unspeakable amongst nobility. And when all the excitement wore off after the fact, the people started wondering what it all meant. They probably wouldn't be as forgiving either. Oh, if they were surrounded now, it might end badly. Oh, no! Xie Lian! Your Highness, I have a broken arm. I won't be able to stop anyone rioting. Go. Oh. There was a mass of people pouring in, their faces filled with excitement, blocking all the exits. The 4 of them had nowhere to run and watched wide-eyed as they became encircled. Xie Lian thought boldly, if anything, I'll just let them beat us down without fighting. Oh. However, unexpectedly, although the crowd poured in, they didn't pulverize him. Instead, a number of hands reached out and threw him into the air, cheering, Your Highness! He was thrown into the air countless times, but still maintained a calm and steady disposition. Your Highness, that leap on the Martial Deity Avenue yesterday was spectacular. Such an amazing jump. Really, I totally thought the Heavenly Martial Emperor himself had descended. I had goosebumps. His Highness was right to save that kid. A life is a life. Did they think kids from us poor people aren't the same? If it were me, I'd do the same. That's right. Today there was talk of how His Highness had ruined the event, and I couldn't stand it. If he'd been a royal or a noble who had fallen, they wouldn't say the same. Your Highness, don't mind those people. His Highness is the only one who truly cares about us. Xie Lian went from feeling guilty, then disoriented, until he was affected by the passionate and cheerful faces. They emerged onto the main street. More and more joined them. Oh, they were separated. Oh, the assembly was surprisingly not smaller than the crowd from the day before. Oh. He couldn't help but think it was both funny and reassuring as he thought to himself, the people in Goshi have completely opposite sentiments. It looks like I was in the right. Okay. And then Xie Lian and company. Many watched the four plus a cart with wonder. Function was pulling the handcart with one hand, like a hard-working, serious young black bull. Xie Lian and Mu Qing smiled dutifully at first, but after a while they stopped caring. The maple trees were endless. This is just paralleling Xie Lian and Hua Cheng coming in on the cart. Is Hua Cheng trying to get him to remember everything from before? Like giving him hints, dropping little breadcrumbs, like, remember when we were on the cart together as kids? Remember that? You know, isn't this similar? Oh. He was, okay. He was feeling good and asked the young child another question casually. Little kid, what is your name really? Hong what? I don't have a name. Didn't your mother give you a name? My mother passed. Then what did your mother used to call you? Hong Hong Air, which means my son Reddy or Little Red. Oh, that's a cute nickname. I'll call you that from now on. Hong Hong Air seemed to be shy whenever they talked and lowered his head. Just then the sun was about to set and the lights were ignited from each of the pavilions all over the mountain. Oh, little Hong Hong. Atop the Great Martial Summit, within the Great Martial Hall, it was bright as day. The lights gathered like stars. He sighed as he watched. The sigh wasn't born of sadness, but from the scenery that emanated such beauty and glory. Every bit of light within the hall was offered. Everlasting lamp. Each lamp contained the prayers and wishes of a devout worshiper. The more everlasting lamps there were within the temple of a god, the more powerful the god became. The chance to offer a lamp within the Great Martial Hall of the Royal Pavilion was difficult to buy even with 1,000 pieces of gold. Wealth, power, ability, passion, affinity. There must be one of the 5 conditions fulfilled in order to enter the hall to offer light. Yet there were more in the world that had none of the 5. Okay, Your Highness. Oh, and it's that guy Zhu. Okay. The Goshi have been asking about you for a while now. He's waiting in the Great Martial Hall. Okay. Clouds born from incense vessel floated and wrapped around the Great Martial Hall, forming a dreamlike state. There were long rows of bright, everlasting lamps that hung in the air, neatly lined on the wall of lanterns. They had a name and a prayer of the worshiper in elegant, decorous writing. Okay. The lamps offered within the Great Martial Hall were, of course, even more valuable than the ones outside. Interesting. The Goshi were offering incense for a statue of the great heavenly emperor, when the 3 deputy Goshi were behind them, uniformly prostrating before the great god. Okay. Your Highness, the 4 of us have deliberated. In regards to the heavenly ceremonial procession, there are but 2 ways to resolve this. Please enlighten me, Goshi. The first method is to find the child who disrupted the procession, and then we shall conduct a ceremony. At the very least, one of his 5 senses must be sealed as penance. Oh! Wait, what? What are we doing to Hua Cheng? Excuse me? Excuse me, what? What? 5 senses sealed. Excuse me? Excuse me? To ascend is human. To fall is human too. And he whipped his head. No, definitely not. I'd expected this response from you, so we put the weight of our consideration on the second method. Please enlighten me. The second method is to have Your Highness publicly repent before the people of Shanla, ask the heavens for forgiveness, and then face the wall in reflection for a month. Not possible. We're not really asking you to face the wall to reflect. You just have to look like you are, as long as you are sincere, it will suffice. Oh, they remember they're in front of the martial emperor, so they're like, oh, well, no, yes, you just have to be sincere, but not really. No. Goshi, when I descended the mountain today, you know what I saw? Not only did the people at the royal capital not condemn the accident that happened during this procession, they approved of it. This proves the people of the kingdom all believe the decision to save the child was right. If I were to do as you say and be punished for something that was done right, what would they think? Doesn't this only tell everyone that to save a life, not only do we obtain fortuitous merits, but instead we'll be punished for our sins? How should they think or act after that? Whether it's right or wrong isn't important. Only that you must choose between the two paths. Nothing is perfect in this world. Either the child shoulders the blame or you do. Oh, whether right or wrong is very important. If I must choose, then I choose the third path. Oh, very Wei Wuxian. Okay, what's the third path? Your Highness, excuse my boldness, but why do you care what they think? Today they think in such a way, tomorrow they'll think another. There's no need for you to mind the small details. Trust me, the people will carry on doing what they need to do and will not be touched by your actions nor take you as an example. It's best we focus on serving what's above our heads. Oh. The more I train, the more I've reflected. There's actually something I've always thought, but I didn't dare speak of it. Is it really right for us to worship and prostrate before the gods like this? Oh my God, yeah, this is just what we were talking about like 4 or 5 chapters ago. If they don't worship the gods, then what are we to do? Go homeless? What, your Highness thinks that the thousands and millions of devotees who came here to worship have the wrong beliefs? The beliefs are not wrong. Only this disciple doesn't think it's right to prostrate. Oh, he raised his head and pointed to the golden, scintillating, glorious and large statue of the heavenly martial emperor. When humans ascend, they become gods. To humans, gods are elders, are teachers, are the everlasting light, but they are not our masters. In such regard, we should be full of thankfulness and also admiration, but never idol worship. Just like the Shengzhuan heavenly ceremonial procession, the correct attitude should be of thankfulness, of joy, not of fear. Not begging to please, not of intimidation, and certainly not putting myself in a position of servitude. Oh, okay. Oh, shit, okay. And Hua Cheng can hear all of this, right? Oh, okay. An accident happened. It couldn't be helped. I'm willing to offer 1,000 lamps to brighten long nights like moths to flames. I'm not afraid. But I refuse to bow my head or something I did right. Face the wall in reflection. What have I done wrong? What has anyone done wrong? Just like how Qirong committed evil, but Feng Xin, who subdued the wrongdoer, had to be punished. Where's the logic in all this? If the heavens have eyes, they will not condemn me for this. Oh. If the heavens really do condemn you, will you apologize then? If that should happen, then the heavens are in the wrong. I'm in the right. I will stand against the heavens and defy until the end. Oh, Your Highness, you're pretty brave to say such words. Oh. Okay. And suddenly there was an alarm. Oh. Okay. Where's Zhuhan? Where did he go? How did this happen? Oh, where are these countless wisps of dark smoke? What? I don't know what happened. The door was locked, but suddenly it opened on its own. Bring me a new soul-sealing jar. What? Within that black pagoda, the walls were covered with lattice of sandalwood panels of varying sizes and shapes, stacked unevenly atop each other. Within each panel were various clay jars, porcelain vases, jaded boxes, and so on. Each of those containers were originally securely placed, the red cover stoppers stuffed firmly in place, the opening sealed with yellow talismans inscribed with crimson spells, but now many were shattered and many more continued to drop off the shells themselves. Those not yet fallen were all swaying and vibrating. Those soul-stealing containers each had a demon or a ghost that once caused havoc sealed within. And such a black pagoda existed in every single temple on Mount Taisang, purposefully utilizing the clean, saintly essence to keep them suppressed. But something had happened that had caused a sudden insurgence. They had all escaped. Oh my God! It's too late! The steel lock that originally chained up the door had been broken by resentful spirits, so Xie Lian unsheathed his sword, used the tip and drew out some characters, and then plunged it down. He brought over 200 swords with him, and when he entered the mountain, and he'd switched the one he carried on his person almost every day, each one was incomparable, singular, treasured sword. That sword, having been slantily stabbed into the ground, sealed the door shut, and only the sounds of resentful spirits within rioting and roaring could be heard. Once they left the black pagoda, they looked up atop, and each of the summits, all the black pagodas behind each temple were filled with black clouds. All the resentful spirits were rushing to the sky, flying towards a certain direction that was now heavy with smoke. What's over there? What are they? Why are they all flying over there? Are you dumb? That's Shanla Pavilion. Oh. On top of Mount Taisang, heavy, thick smoke emerged from the countless temples across innumerous peaks and rolled over to form an enormous swirl above Shanla Pavilion. Oh. All the demons and ghosts are being lured over. What exactly did you put inside? Nothing, just... Oh, the child! Oh! His Highness's place is on fire. What? Sure enough, a corner of Shanlin Pavilion was alight, flames bursting towards the sky, reflecting dark crimson in the clouds above. Yet at the foot of Mount Taisang, all those in the royal capital who hadn't gone to bed had no idea what was going on as they witnessed the scene from afar. They were excitedly dragging others to watch in awe. Oh, wow, the great immortals in the godly mountain are conducting a ceremony. What a show! The group arrived at the Shanla Pavilion. He didn't keep too many servants, so a number of cultivators from other summits had rushed over, drawing well water, trying to put out the fires. He didn't see his two attendants and immediately rushed inside. All the resentful spirits of Mount Taisang had been gathered there. It was pitch black inside. Oh, don't come in. This child is strange. All those spirits were coming for him. Oh, it's not me. Oh. Stop holding on. Let it go. If we do all these things, we'll go crazy. No fear. Let go now. Oh. In the next second, Xie Lian reached out lightning fast and choked a particular wisp of black smoke. He didn't even look and grabbed the black smoke with his bare hands, holding in his palm firmly. The moment he caught that one resentful spirit, all the crazed swarm of resentful spirits slowed down. Everyone silently nodded. In a situation where a large swarm of resentful spirits gathered in the same place, they would usually follow the lead of the strongest one. Once that one is caught without a leader, the spirits would lose direction. Xie Lian immediately recognized the strongest one and choked it, not giving it any chance, and with only a squeeze, that one resentful spirit disintegrated into nothing in his palm. Oh! They flew haphazardly around the Shanli Pavilion like headless flies until finally they had no choice but to give up and return to the seal within the Goshi's sleeves. Oh. Where did that child come from? Why were they going after him? What's wrong? That's a child who fell from the city wall during the heavenly ceremonial procession. Why did you bring him here? What did he do to attract all the resentful spirits of the Black Pagodas? I don't know what he did. But once he entered the mountain, soon after coming inside the pavilion, all those black things suddenly flew over from all over the peaks and broke in, swarming around him, gathering more by the minute, and we couldn't get out. Then what's with the fire? We couldn't leave, so we had to draw an array to defend. Oh, he's covered in soot! The resentful spirits kindled the candlelight and burnt the curtains, hoping to force us out. Oh. Okay, Mu Qing closed his eyes and lowered his head. They had surrounded the young child, observing him closely. Is there anything the matter with the child? If there was anything the matter, such as being possessed by ghosts, Xie Lian should have been able to recognize it immediately. After having trained at the Royal Pavilion for a number of years, he had worked on his sight especially, and very few things could deceive his eyes, yet he couldn't see anything off with this child. Nothing seemed amiss. What's your birth date, month, year, and time? Oh. Just tell him. Goshi only wants to tell your fortune for your own good. The moment he spoke, Hong Hong Air obediently told the time of his birth in a low voice. He started calculating with his fingers. The people around watched him talking in low voices and saw his expression grow dimmer and dimmer. Xie Lian watched and became more and more solemn too. The Goshi looked to be no more than a tender 30-something-year-old man, but Xie Lian knew better than just how powerful his teacher was to be able to rule over the Holy Pavilion. The number one Goshi of Shanla, Mei Yanqing, was famed throughout the land for his fortune-telling. Xie Lian learned the art of sword and of spells from the deputy Goshi, but never learned the art of fortune-telling from the Goshi himself, only because the Goshi told him it was an art of the streets. The golden stature of the crown prince had no need for such tricks. Plus, Xie Lian himself wasn't interested, so he never tried. But whenever the Goshi worked his art, there were never mistakes. Oh, no wonder he ruined the heavenly ceremonial procession. that the spirits of the Black Pagodas grew excited from sensing him. That it was burnt too. This is truly... Truly what? Your Highness, you brought something you shouldn't have up the mountain. That small child is toxic. His sign is born of the most ominous star, the star of Solitude, destined to bring misfortune and destruction, the kind that evil loves most. Whoever touches him will have misfortune befall him. Whoever gets close will lose their lives. Oh, he headbutted the Goshi! His voice was young and tender, but his screams were filled with rage, as if his heart was filled to the brim with unspeakable pain and anguish, making many of the present shiver. That young child was covered in injuries, yet he tore and hit out at them like a red-eyed rabid dog, violent and aggressive. Oh, make him leave the mountain. Don't touch him, I mean. His fortune is too toxic. Don't touch him. Oh, the deputy Goshi hurriedly moved aside, and Mu-Ching and Feng-Shen didn't know whether to act. Seeing that everyone was avoiding him like he was a poisonous snake, that child was shaken and started thrashing even harder, biting and screaming. The Star of Solitude. People within this sign in their fortune are said to bring the greatest misfortune to those around them, while they themselves are fine, which is why it's called the Star of Solitude. The sign can be nullified with the meeting of a savior. Shut up! On a separate note, Xiao Po Lang is the other great sign of misfortune, along with the Star of Solitude. These two signs are the most devastating in the Chinese divination. I'm not. You're not. I know you're not. Don't cry now. I know you're not. That young child pressed his lips closed tightly, grabbing onto a pair of snow-white sleeves around his waist with a death grip. He forced himself to hold back for a long time, but in the end he couldn't. A stream of tears suddenly rolled down from that round black eye, and he burst out crying. Xie Lian embraced him from behind and reiterated firmly, "It's not you. It's not your fault." Well, we got one chapter to go. Oh my gosh. Okay. Chapter 68, To Ascend is Human, to Fall is also human 3. Oh. The wailing contained no words, utterly meaningless. It was nothing like the sound of sobbing, but was hair-raisingly dreadful. It would sound like the desperate cries of a full-grown man breaking down, or the struggling of a small beast with its throat cut open by a knife, as if only immediate death could he be relieved. It should not be coming from a child of 10 years. It's best to let him go. Your Highness, let go. Be careful of... It's fine. Oh, he ran over to pull the child. Little child, you can't. Yet the harder he pulled, the harder the child held on to Xie Lian, refusing to let go no matter what. 3 or 4 more people came and tried to rip him off, but instead it made him hang on to Xie Lian like a little monkey. He found it both funny and pitiful, and he held on to him with one hand, gently rubbing up and down the emaciated small back in comfort while raising the other. Never mind, don't worry, let him be. Oh. Was anyone else hurt in the fire? No, there were only us inside at the time. As the pavilion was burnt to a crisp, Xie Lian could no longer stay. After making sure it was the only building that was burnt, and not any of the people... Oh, all the swords and everything burnt! Oh my god! Oh, okay! Oh, alright. This is where his pavilion burnt. Oh my god, okay. There's so many things we're going to do in discussion that I've noticed upon rereading that I'm like... Okay. Alright. Rather distraught at all the charred precious gems and treasures, Xie Lian wasn't concerned, however. The things he used daily were a little more intricate, but other than that, Xie Lian didn't really have anything of importance stored inside the pavilion. The most precious items were his collection of over 200 treasured swords, but they were made of durable metals, unafraid of fires, since they were forged in flames anyway, so they were all unharmed. Oh, okay, good. Alright, cool. After having dug themselves out, he stored them temporarily at Si Shang Pavilion that belonged to the Goshi. Okay, good. So the swords are fine, right? He was still firmly holding on to Xie Lian. Having cried himself to exhaustion, fell asleep. He wanted to find a place in Mount Taisang to settle in, but the Goshi asked him to make a visit to the pavilion first, so he carried the child over too. Tucking that young child in the divan Riding the covers, he dropped the bedside curtain and backed out of the room with Feng Xin and Mu Qing in tow. Goshi, is that child's fate really that terrifying? Why don't you think for yourself after you appeared what has happened? Yeah, he'd fallen off the city wall, forcing it to be cut short. When he appeared again, he was Shirong was dragging him through the streets in that horse carriage and rage, causing a riot. It made Feng Xin break an arm, and Xie Lian butted heads with the king and making the queen roll tears. This time, all the resentful spirits of Mount Taiseng broke out of their seals within the black pagodas and even burnt down the Shanla pavilion. Misfortune was indeed following him like a shadow. Is there any way to break this? Break this? What do you mean, change his fate? Your Highness, you haven't learned the art of fortune-telling from me. So when it comes to matters like these, you really don't understand anything. If you did, you wouldn't have asked. Tell me why. Do you still remember the day when you just turned 6? When His Majesty and the Queen bade me to enter the palace and tell your fortune, the one question I asked. The few people and the cup of water. That year, the Goshi had asked Xie Lian many questions in order to help tell his fortune. There were questions with answers and ones without, and with every answer Xie Lian gave, the Goshi would praise the boy, making the king and queen smile with pleasure. Many exchanges from that conversation were later passed around as delightful stories, but there was one question to which, when Xie Lian answered, the Goshi made no commentary. Very few knew of the details, not even Feng Xin, never mind Mu Qing. The question was 2 people in a cup of water. 2 people walked in the desert, about to die from thirst, and there was only 1 cup of water. The one who drinks lives, and the one who doesn't dies. If you were a god, who would you give that cup of water to? Don't speak yet. I'll ask the other 2 and see how they answer. May I ask who those 2 people... Mu Qing! Okay, Mu Qing! May I ask who those 2 people are, what their natures are like, and what are their merits? A decision can be made only once the details are known. Feng Xin, on the other hand, said, I don't know. Don't ask me and tell them to decide amongst themselves. Wow, okay, all right. What are you laughing about? Do you remember how you answered? Give another cup. Oh. One turned his face away and the other lowered his head as if he couldn't bear to listen. Why are you guys laughing? I'm serious. If I were a god, I would definitely give another cup. All fortunes in the world, good or bad, are limited. Just like this cup of water, there's only so much. Once you've drunk your fill, there'll be no more left for the others. If one receives more, the other must receive less. Throughout all the ages, all conflicts born from the fact that there are many in this world, but only 1 cup of water, and no matter who's it's given to, there must be for good reason. You'd want to change fate? It's difficult, but not impossible. But if you change that child's life, someone else's life will also be changed, and more grudges shall be created. Once upon a time, you said just to give another cup of water. Like today, how you wanted to choose the 3rd path. Your intention is to expand the source. A beautiful thought, but I will tell you it's impossible. Oh. Ooh. Don't trouble yourself. Wisdom or not, you don't listen anyway. Earlier today, before the great martial hall, in a moment of passion, this disciple has offended you. Please forgive me for my affront. You're my proud disciple and the crown prince. How could I not forgive you? I can tell you are the most beloved by the heavens I've ever seen. You have the talent, the ambition, the heart, and you're not afraid of hard work. You have a prestigious background, yet a compassionate nature. No one is more suited for the title, Darling of the Heavens. Still, I'm worried about you. I'm afraid there will be a trial that you won't be able to pass. Although you've already achieved such a high level, there are some things you are still far from understanding and others can't teach you. Just like how today at the Great Martial Hall, that speech you made, that bit about not worshiping God or something, very few are able to think that far. And that you were able to reach such thoughts at such a young age is already impressive. However, do not think yourself the only one who have thought such thoughts in the world. The things you've spoken today were already spoken by others decades, maybe centuries ago, but their words never took form. Their voices were too small, and not many heard. Have you ever wondered why that is? Because if they thought of it, they never acted on it, and they weren't determined enough? And you? What makes you think you're determined enough? Goshi, do you think I can ascend? If you can't ascend, then no one can. It's only a matter of time. Then just you watch. If one day I ascend, I will for sure do all that I said today, and become a power to behold. Oh. Feng chin's lip curved upward, and the light shining in Muqi's eyes were exactly the same as Xie Lian's. Very well, I shall wait and see. However, I don't think it's a good thing for you to ascend too early. Let me ask you, what is the path? As you've said, that which is walked is the path. That's correct. But you haven't walked enough. I think it's time for you to take a walk down the mountain. Oh my God! Oh! You're 17 this year. I'll permit you to ascend Mount Taiseng to gain some experience through travels on the outside. Oh, excellent. Oh, every day spent at the royal capital just thinking about the king, Qirong, and many others, Xie Lian couldn't help but feel crabby. Having such a glamorous Shanli pavilion torched, he wouldn't be able to avoid another bout with his parents. If he could go further away, he could focus on just walking his own path. Throughout the ages, there's been a saying that passed down like it's the ultimate truth, but it's actually wrong. Only no one ever noticed. When humans ascend, they become gods. When they fall, they become ghosts. Is there something wrong with that? Of course it's wrong. Remember, when humans ascend, they are still human. When they fall, they are still human. In any case, as for that child, don't let it worry you too much. Everyone has their fate. Many times there won't be a way to help just because you want to help. If anything happens, we'll deal with it then. Go out and experience the world, and I pray that when you return, you will have matured. However, that very night, outside everyone's expectations, the child escaped from the royal pavilion and disappeared. And what was even more outside of everyone's expectations, after his travels, at the age of 17, the crown prince of the kingdom of Shanle, Xie Lian soundly defeated a nameless ghost at Yinian Bridge, and just like that, he ascended the heavens amidst the roars of thunder and lightning. It was the shock of the three realms. Oh my God! Oh my God! Okay. Okay, and there's a translation note. The idea of ascension is a Taoist one. The basic gist is, all gods and immortals are mortals and other beings who cultivated deeply and attained enlightenment. Their bodies shed the troubles of a mortal body and are removed from the corporeal world. Heaven is only an imperial court for the enlightened ones. And other than the ones in administrative roles, like the Jade Emperor, many watched and protected over an aspect of the celestial mortal realm, example, love, marriage, peace of land, etc. There are also carefree immortals who just wander the world and help mortals as they go, or become hermits deep in the mountains. However, there is a formless will, Tao, of the universe that guides the world's destiny. Thus, things like fate and such are beyond a god's ability to change. It's the will of the universe that deems when a mortal is fit for ascension, and it will send forth a heavenly calamity, usually a blast of thunder and lightning, to test the mortal. If the mortal passes, they ascend to become a god. There are 3 different levels of godhood. The lowest level is godhood after death. Mid-level is godhood after living on earth for an insane number of years. Top level is ascension in broad daylight before the eyes of all. For the top tier, the will of the universe usually picks those who have done deeds so great they have shocked the wheel of fortune, or have the potential to change the course of history. It's immoral. The question of whether the deed is right or wrong is not figured into this, which is why earlier in the book, MXTX said there's usually a lot of bloodshed involved. Xie Lian attained enlightenment and shed his mortal body. He did not die. Everyone knew because of the thunder and lightning. This is how we're going to end volume 2. Okay. I love this series. That's the best way. I was wondering when I started this new arc, book 2. I was like, we've got like this much left of the book. Why are we starting a new book here? How are you going to end it? It feel right. And it ends it and it feels right. So I was like, man, I should not have doubted the publishers when I was like, how can you start part 2 with like this much left of the book? And no, it ends on the perfect spot. It ends us right back where we started in volume 1. So we've all come full circle, but clearly there is a lot more to the story. And oh my God, these chapters. I thought I had a lot to talk about in the 5 chapters that we got in the last section, but no, I got like a ton of notes. I was like, oh my God. Hua Cheng is just trying to get Xie Lian to figure it out, right? Right? Hua Cheng is like, I'm laying all these breadcrumbs. I'm being nostalgic. Do you get it, Xie Lian? Do you get who I am? I'm going back to your roots. But Xie Lian doesn't have enough CPU space to remember. The RAM isn't working. I was like, Xie Lian, because these chapters, all the stuff Hua Cheng's doing, he's trying to get Xie Lian to remember him and who he is without, coming out and saying it. And Xie Lian's just like, well, I don't get it. It's like, ah! I also, what's really cool about this is getting more Fengxian and Mu Qing, but the Goshi Mei, I really like his character. I like the Goshi Mei. I didn't think I would. And there's a little brief moment where I was like, but then the end conversation he has with Xie Lian about growing up and about his idealism, I'm like, oh no, yeah. Like there's some stuff we can debate on and talk about, sure, but I feel like the Goshi overall is in a good place and is trying to tell Xie Lian, like that's all well and good what you're saying, but you're not the first person to say it, and it's a lot harder than you think. You can't just, the idealism you have is not, it's not going to be easy, and there is some truth to what he says. Now, granted, I was like, sealing a sense? What? No. And I thought for a second they were going to. I was like, well, as far as we know, Hua Cheng, little Hong Hong, has already lost an eye, but we don't know because we don't see past the bandages. I'm like, I would honestly be okay if MXTX never explained why he was bandaged up like that. Would be fine with that. If we never got an explanation, and I don't want y'all confirming or deconfirming my theories, I'm going to be putting stuff on Whiteboard Kun. I know that you guys are going to be sitting there going, but please do not spoil or give me hints or clues. But if we never find out, I'm fine with that. If it's just Hua Cheng thinks he's ugly, and we get enough subtext in these chapters to kind of fill in the gaps, like, okay, you could kind of figure out where this is going. But yeah, if we never find out, it's fine. He escaped, though. He escaped. And God, there's so much to talk about with these chapters. Oh my God. I thought I was going to sit down tonight and be like, well, we're going to wrap up this book. It's not going to be a big discussion. Probably be like an hour and a half. I don't know at this point. I'm like, it's pretty late, but I'm still going to talk because I'm all jacked up on Mountain Dew and this story. But we do even get 2 pictures. And I want to go over the glossary. I read over the glossary real quick, and I want to go over it with you all before we end this because I think that's pretty important. We get 2 pictures. The Goshi, look at that Goshi. Look how handsome he is. Mei, Mei, at the beginning I thought the Goshi was like, like maybe in his 60s and old because it seemed like he was older. During the ceremonial chapters, I was like, oh, he seems like an older guy. No, he's in his 30s. He's hot as hell. It's like, old Mei here. Old Mei Chinchan, I like him. Look how good he looks. Look at that. Look at that jawline. Look at that hair. I'm all about it. I was like, okay, Goshi. Even the Shanla family, they will not hire you unless you are hot. That is a rule. Hua Cheng will fit right in, right? We were talking in the Discord, massive glow up. Biggest glow up is Hua Cheng in this story, right? I liked that picture. That was a real good one. I liked it. But also, for the angst factor, you got little baby Hua Cheng. Look at that. Just wailing like a little animal in Xie Lian's arms. Look at that. Look at that detail. And he just looks like an angel. Like the one person that didn't judge Hua Cheng, that defended him. No wonder he's in love with Xie Lian. Xie Lian was the one person that defended him no matter what. I'm like, shut up. I was like, oh my God. There's so much to talk about. So I don't really know where to start. So I'm just going to go through my notes and we're just going to go through. And if anything needs to be written on Whiteboard Kun, we're going to write on it. But I do like Hua Cheng's world tour of trying to remind Xie Lian of who he is. So Hua Cheng does several things in the first volume as he knows it, as he sees Xie Lian, to try to convince him, be like, hey, does this seem familiar to you? Does this seem like something happened 800 years ago? I'm trying to tell you who I am without telling you who I am. So it is his like nostalgia throwbacks, right? There's a lot of them in these chapters to the stuff that happened from volume 1. And even this volume as well, right? So we'll touch base on those. We'll kind of tie into those as we go. But yeah, so Mu Qing, I like the characterization of Mu Qing and Fengxian right off the bat, where Mu Qing, he knows all the homeless kids. And he's like, nah, this Hong kid, he's got like patches sewn up that's clearly been done by an adult. there's something off with him. He's not, I feed all the homeless kids around here, so I know that he's not one of them. I like that establishes that Mu Ching, he does have compassion toward the kids. He's just a tsundere. And I like that Feng Xin is just amazed that Mu Ching would even take the time to feed the kids. He's like, you do this? And Xie Lian's sitting there like, you bakas, you don't even know, right? I love it. But Hua Cheng says that he has no home. That he's like, I have no home to go to. He clearly had a bad home life. His mother's died. He says, there was fighting at my home, so I left. Back in the first volume, I didn't realize this upon the reaction, and then when I reread it, I was like, back in the first volume, when he meets Xie Lian on the cart, what does he tell Xie Lian? He says, oh, I fought with my family and left home. Which is exactly what he told Xie Lian in this chapter. I was like, oh, he's trying to get Xie Lian to figure it out. Be like, I'm that kid you saved, but I just don't want to come out and say it. So, because I'm a ghost now. And so it's like, yeah, he fought with his family and left home. That's exactly what it said in the cart and back in volume 1. I was like, just, oh my gosh. And like the story in the carriage, right? And when they do the carriage ride, we'll talk about that more in a minute, but the carriage ride through the maples, exactly like it was then. Again, just being like, doesn't this seem familiar, Xie Lian? You know, trying to get him to notice. But yeah, so Mu Ching and Feng Xin, I like the idea that Mu Ching and Feng Xin actually fight over who's going to carry Hua Cheng back to the palace. They actually fight over it. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, these guys that will end up growing up fighting Hua Cheng over and over again. I honestly wonder, Hua Cheng seems like, I've said in previous reactions, he seems like somebody that may or may not hold a grudge. I don't know if he is holding a grudge against Mu Ching and Feng Xin, but I feel like he wants to punk them every time he can because he knows who they are and they don't know who he is. So I feel like he takes any opportunity he can to be like, I know you two bastards. You don't know me, but I know you, and I'm going to make you all suffer because y'all are bitches. And I'm like, oh my God, Hua Cheng! Just, it's great. Even though I don't think Feng Xin and Mu Ching are bitches. They're actually great. I like their characters an awful lot. But yeah, I like they fight over who's going to get Hua Cheng, and instead Hua Cheng clings to Xie Lian because of course he does, right? And so, God, it's so interesting that Feng Xin's like, he really knows how to pick him. I'm like, yes, he does. But Xie Lian is afraid. He's afraid of the guilt from what's happened with Qirong. He's like, Qirong has caused a mess. And I feel guilty about it because all these people's like homes and stalls are ruined, and it's kind of my fault by association with him. So I really don't want to mate anybody. And they decide that he's like, I can't just leave Hua Cheng in the streets. And if he doesn't have a good home life, we can't just leave him there. So let's just take him with us. It's fine. We'll just figure out what's going on, right? We'll just keep going. And so that's when they run into the townspeople. They find a cart, again, the cart, and then they run into all the townspeople, right? And Xie Lian automatically assumes that the townspeople are going to be freaked out and be mad at what happened at the ceremony. But that's not what happens. We get like a Daenerys moment where they like lift Xie Lian up and throw him in the air, and they're like, Misha, you know, like they're just having like Xie Lian's like praised by the people. They're being like, look what you did. They're like, you actually saved that poor kid. Like, what if that kid had been like one of us? You saved us. We would have done the same. They're like, if it had been a noble, they wouldn't have they wouldn't have spared any thought to save him. But you spared some poor civilian like us. Like, good for you, Xie Lian. Like, they all think that what he did was right. Or at least, here's the thing. That group of people that he encounters thinks that he's right. So we'll talk about Xie Lian here, right? Xie Lian assumes he thinks that he is right based on the crowd that he saw. But the Goshi brings up a good point. He's like, yeah, people's minds change constantly. He's like, those people that you ran into, they don't represent the entire whole of Shanla. They're just like a group of people you met in a crowd that were all like-minded. And 2, they may be praising you one day, but they may go against you the very next day. So he's like, the Goshi's like, you can't just base your view of yourself and your actions on what this one select population believes, because they're not an accurate representation of the whole, right? But yeah, they recognize him, they praise him, and they say he did good. And Xie Lian believes he was right. And he notes how different, he says he notes how different the town people are from the nobles and the Goshi, which I thought was like a direct reference to how the mortals are different from the gods. I thought that was a reference to that Xie Lian's making. It would make sense if that was the case. But then, yeah, I love the function. He carries the cart with one arm. Like, just pulls the cart with one arm. And they call him like a black bull. I like these, like, has a black bow. He's like a black bull. I like that associated with function. And then Mu Qing and Hua Cheng are like either on the cart or I don't know. It doesn't really say if Mu Qing's helping Xie Lian. Xie Lian's helping to push the cart. Obviously, Hua Cheng's on it. Xie Lian's helping to push it, helping function. I would assume Mu Qing is helping, but I'm not sure. I don't know if the book really said that. But Hua Cheng's nickname, he's Hong Hong, Hong Hong Air. Like, he's Little Red. Little Red! I was like, that's the sweetest thing, Little Red. So cute. It explains, like, he goes all in with the red aesthetic. He's like, nope, going all in with this, just so we know. Crimson Rain, Salt Flower, that's how we're doing this. It's like, again, biggest glow up. And so, Hong, he's really shy around Xie Lian, and it's like, it's so insane that he's shy around Xie Lian as this kid, and then he grows up to be like the hottest man alive, and he's just like, okay, I don't know. It's like, ah! Again, it's like freaking Romy Michelle's high school reunion where he shows up in a helicopter after owning a shoe company. Is like, oh, do you love me? And then they dance and have a dance number together. Just, oh my God. But yeah, the Great Martial Hall. They talk about the everlasting lamps, which I thought were interesting. The everlasting lamps, they are filled with the prayers and wishes of devout worshipers. And so they use this thing with the lamps. And I guess I'm going to put these concepts over here, right? These concepts that are brought up in this. So with the everlasting lamps, there is the idea that the more you have, the more powerful you become, right? But it's not like an incense stick or like a paper crane or something that just anybody can make. No. They establish that you have to basically, they're worth more than 1,000 pieces of gold. And you have to have one of the 5 attributes to be able to donate these lamps, which I thought was interesting because we get these 5 conditions that come right at the tail of them talking about sealing one of the 5 senses. So I thought that those 2 5s back to back were interesting. So we have the idea of wealth, the idea of power, the idea of affinity, who you know, and then we have the idea of, what was the other one? Passion and ability, right? So we have passion and we have ability. I guess if you were to like designate a sense to each of those, then I just guess like, because you have the idea of touch, and you have smell, you have sight, you have hearing, and you have taste. So that's interesting. It's like, well, what could you do? I guess it's hard. You can associate any sense with any of those, but it's curious that we have five different conditions and 5 senses mentioned in the same chapter. I thought that was rather interesting. But yeah, so Xie Lian, he leads to the Goshi inside, where there are even more everlasting lamps, and the ones inside the palace are obviously more priceless than the ones outside the palace, because they're inside, they're protected, right? They're more valuable. And so when he runs into them, they're like, well, we've convened, and we've decided that there's 2 ways we can solve this problem. Either one, we find the child and we seal one of their senses. So option 1 was to seal the sense of a child as penance. And I'm like, excuse me? No! I really honestly thought that that's what they were going to do in this series. I thought that that's what was going to happen. And like Hua Cheng, like maybe, wouldn't that be I thought that maybe it was going to be a twist in the story where Hua Cheng did get a sense sealed. And maybe they sealed like his sight. What if he's been blind this whole time? What if he's not been able to smell this whole time? What if he can't taste this whole time? What if he can't touch when he touches Xie Lian? He can't feel him. Like, and maybe that's why he freaks out when he touches him, because he can't feel the sensation. I thought that's where the story was going, but that was just one option. Xie Lian's like, nope, absolutely not. We're not putting him to blame. The other option is that Xie Lian, he repents to the people. He does a giant formal apology. He asks the heavens for forgiveness. asks old Junwoo to forgive him. And then he stands at the wall of reflection for a month. Which sounds like a very Lan Wangji thing to do. As we find out in these chapters, Xie Lian is he's much more Wei Wuxian than Lan Wangji. Because Xie Lian's like, no. Like, instantly, he's like, I don't want to do that. And he's like, how about we don't? And instead, he's like, oh, I want to choose like a third path. Like Wei Wuxian. Wei Wuxian would choose a third path, right? But he says basically the Goshi's like, the Goshi established, he's like, no. He's like, you don't really have... This is the thing, though. The Goshi say, oh, well, you have to stand in front of the wall of reflection. You don't really have to reflect. But then they realize where they are, see the statue of Junwoo, and they're like, you have to be sincere, but you don't really have to reflect. So they're kind of hypocrites, right? So it's the idea that they were not going to enforce the reflection. They were like, as long as it looks sincere, we'll count it. I'm like, that says a lot right there, right? As long as you are sincere, it will suffice. So they're not really, it's like, are they devout? Or is it just a front? Are they just putting on airs for the posterity and for the ceremonial aspect of it, right? To keep up a face, right? That's what it seems like it is. But Xie Lian, he was like, I believe that what I did was right in saving Hua Cheng. He's like, what will this mistake do? He's like, if I go and prostrate myself in front of the village, in front of the townspeople, he's like, I'll prove that what I did was the wrong thing to do, but they just praised me for it. So why would I do that? Why would I go back and make it seem like an accident? And the Goshi say, right and wrong don't matter. They're like, right and wrong don't matter. They make the case that penance must be the part that you have to perform. They're like, you have to show that you are upholding tradition and our society standards. You have to show that you're showing penance, right? And he says that people are fickle. He's like, people are fickle. They change their mind constantly. They may agree and think you're right one minute. They're going to disagree with you and form a mob the next minute. He's like, it's not the people that we are appeasing. No, we are making sure that the gods and the heavens are appeased. He's like, we're not doing this for the people. You're going to reflect and do this to make sure that you're in the favor of the heavens. You're doing it for Junwoo, baby. You're not doing it for anybody else, right? And Xie Lian groundbreakingly makes a proclamation that he's like, I've been training and reflecting, and like we said back a few chapters ago, he kind of doubles down on this, right? Xie Lian doubles down, and he's like, I don't think we should worship anyone. And what he says, for being 16, he's kind of ahead of himself there. It's like, it's so interesting because the Goshi's like, he's like, don't worship anybody. He's like, our society would collapse. We would crumble if we didn't worship anything. Like, there would be chaos. Like, there has to be some kind of order in a society. And Xie Lian says, yes, which honestly, when the Goshi said, like, there has to be, like, a society and a setup, all I could think of is like, well, yeah, you're in this big fancy palace that has a lot of benefactors who are devotees. If you suddenly tell them like what they're doing is stupid and they've devoted all this money for no reason, then everything's going to collapse. The capitalism that you've gained from all this is going to be for nothing. And it's like, yeah. So you could tell why the Goshi's like, well, we can't just say we can't worship anybody because then what will happen to our temples? What do we do then? But Xie Lian, he's like, no, he's like, the people aren't wrong. He's like, the people are not wrong for their beliefs. He's like, I just don't agree. He's like, Xie Lian's all like freedom of religion. He's like, but I'm kind of a little bit agnostic on this. He's like, no. And he tells, and I love the visual of him pointing to the statue of Junwoo. Like him pointing up the statue of Junwoo. Like, just and knowing everything we know about him and Junwoo's relationship now, it's like that makes so much sense what Xie Lian believes. It makes so much more sense. He says humans become gods. And he refers to them like elders. He's like they're elders and mentors and teachers. He's like, yes, we should be thankful, right? And we should show respect, right? He says we should be thankful, and we can show admiration even. Respect and admiration, but not idol worship. And that's how I think that's how him and Junwoo's relationship is now. He's like, yeah, I respect him as being the Heavenly Emperor. I respect him. I'm thankful that he does his job, that he maintains his order in the heavenly realm. Good for him. But I don't worship him. I think that's how Xie Lian's relationship with Junwoo is. I don't worship him. He's like, no. And he makes the comment that he says we should be thankful and have joy. He's like, have joy, not fear. Not fear or begging to please, right? Not fear or begging to please. And he says, not intimidation, right? Not intimidation, and not putting myself as a servant, and not servitude. Which I'm very curious about, because when he ascended and went to the heavenly realm the first time, I wonder if Xie Lian slipped a little bit from that ideology. I don't want confirmation, right? I want to find out in volume 3, because I have a feeling we're going to get it in volume 3, because he ascended at the end of this volume. I feel like volume 3 is going to pick up at his ascension, right? So I'm going to be curious going into volume 3 if we get Xie Lian in the heavenly realm, and if he kind of backtracked from this a little bit and maybe wanted to please Junwoo. Maybe he formed a relationship with Junwoo and wanted to please him and kind of made the role of a servant, and then it all fell apart when Shanlo was in danger from the White Calamity. Maybe that happened. I don't know. But it seems like maybe that could have, because I still feel like Junwoo wants him to be a servant. I still feel like Junwoo, at the end of the day, he admires Xie Lian, he respects him, he may even love him himself, but I feel like Junwoo wants Xie Lian to be under him. Now, you can take that as figurative or literal as you want to. I think Junwoo wants him under him. But I think that Xie Lian's like, no, we're equals in this. Like, I can be thankful for you and admire you and respect you, but I'm not your servant. I'm not going to worship you. You were a human once too. Why would I? Right? It's kind of poking fun at like the hierarchy of it, being like, yeah, you may be my boss, but I'm not going to worship you. We're both people at the end of the day, right? So that's fascinating. Right? And Xie Lian, he's like, I'll even offer you 1,000 lamps, but I'm not afraid, and I'm not going to bow to something that I did right. And he talks about Feng Shen and Qirong. He's like, this is stupid. He's like, there's no logic to this. He's like, my loyal bodyguard had his arm broken because of something that wasn't his fault. That was Qirong's fault that he had to suffer for. He's like, it makes no sense. He's like, I'm not about it. I don't like it. It goes back to him not liking his dad's way of thinking. And he's like, he makes this statement though. And the Goshi is very quick to correct him, right? He makes a statement that the heavens know I'm right, and they won't condemn me. And I feel like when we get to the White Calamity, that's going to blow up in his face, right? And the Goshi says, what if they do condemn you? The Goshi's like, you sure about that? He's like, you think you know how the heavenly realm works. Are you sure about that? You want to go up to the heavenly realm and tell people they shouldn't worship all the people in the heavenly realm? You think that's going to go over well? Okay, sure. He's like, what happens if they condemn you? Are you going to apologize? And Xie Lian, I feel like this is the crux of the whole series, right? Xie Lian says that, no, I'm not going to apologize. He says that the heavens are wrong. The heavens will be wrong. And I will stand against them and defy them until the end. And I will defy until the end. And I feel like in some respects, Xie Lian, he's kept that same mantra, but it's a lot less It's a lot less arrogant. Because there's a little bit of arrogance there with Xie Lian in this chapter. We, as the audience, we know what Xie Lian becomes 800 years from now. And we know that he's very capable of defending himself and maybe defying the heavens. But at 16 years old, it's like, you're a 16-year-old kid. It seems like a very, like, arrogant thing to say. Like, oh, I'll just tell the heavens they're wrong. And they'll have to deal with it. And it's like, okay. But, I mean, now it's kind of apparent that Xie Lian has matured a lot. And we'll talk about that later in chapter 68. Xie Lian has matured a lot. But at the same time, he has kept some of that ideology all the way through, even from 800 years ago. And I think now he does defend people. He doesn't outright tell people that they're wrong. That's the thing. He has matured a bit where he doesn't come out and say, you're wrong and you're stupid and I'm right. No, Xie Lian doesn't do that. Instead, he does defy them in his own way, but he does so in a much more professional and calm and understanding way where he's like, okay, well, you can think that, but we don't have the full picture yet. He's very calm about it. He's like, well, I don't believe Hua Cheng is doing this because, I have X, Y, and Z reasons, and let's just, try to find things out fully before we make any rash judgments. Like, he handles it all very maturely, right? And I think that's come with the 800 years he's been around. And so, yeah. But here he's like, I'll defy the heavens until the very end. I feel like that's going to be the crux of this entire story, is Xie Lian defying the heavens and saying, no, I don't believe this is right. And we'll talk about that with these chapters and about fate and everything, because that's going to come up in all of this, right? But yeah, so then the alarm goes off. The alarm goes off, and we have the black pagodas, the temples, and all of Mount Taisang opens up, and all the demons are summoned up from it. Now, the big question is, and this has been on my mind ever since reading it, is like, it just so happens that everything that happens to Hua Cheng in this moment comes right after Xie Lian declared that he was going to defy the heavens. So there is a part of me that is like, okay, is Hua Cheng really cursed? Or is he being used as like the biggest scapegoat by the heavens or the universe to like get at Xie Lian? And it almost feels like the timing of it feels like the heavens were like, oh, okay, well here we're going to do this now. And that they all made the demons and ghosts go after Hua Cheng. It seems like fate, right? Seems like fate. But it seems almost like something made the ghosts or demons go to Hua Cheng to like, as punishment to Xie Lian, right? For thinking such awful thoughts as to defy the heavens. It just feels kind of weird, the timing of it does. And I'm just going to file it away in the back of my brain and just keep it back there for a while. I don't know. But yeah, was it because of Hua Cheng, or did Xie Lian bring it upon himself by defying the heavens? I don't know. But people don't get what's going on at Shanli Pavilion. And it took me forever to figure out that the Shanli Pavilion, it burning, this is what was being talked about when Hua Cheng was mentioning, this is why he brought the whole sword armory. The sword armory was the whole thing with the Shanli Pavilion burning. Oh my God. Yeah. He was like, hey, remember that swords, which we find out later the swords did not burn up in the pavilion fire, which is good. But he's like, oh yeah, he's like, the pavilion. Like, look, I made your armory again. Remember when we knew each other at the armory before it burned down? And then the whole fire, the fire at Paradise Manor. The fire at Paradise Manor. When he's like, hey, remember that fire in Shanli Pavilion back when we first met? Like, he's just trying to get Xie Lian's attention. Xie Lian just doesn't get it. But Hua Cheng, this is the thing that makes me think that he's like, it's not me. It's not me doing it. So there is this question. Is Hua Cheng really cursed and fate has just decided to make him the child of destruction, the child of misfortune, and that's just the will of the universe? Or is there some other force behind Hua Cheng's situation? We don't know that for sure. That's probably going to be discussed as we go through the novel. We'll see, right? But it's not confirmed. We don't know that for sure, right? All we know is that Xie Lian realizes which spirit is the leader, and he crushes it. And that makes all the other spirits just kind of like, they don't have a follower, so they just kind of dissipate from there. And so the spirits cause the fire in chaos. But they say that nothing seems amiss about Hua Cheng. That's the thing that's kind of crazy, is this notion that Hua Cheng is just a normal kid that has been cursed with the sign of the Star of Solitude and misfortune. Him and Xie Lian, birds of a feather, eh? Birds of a feather. I wondered for a while when the Goshi was doing his fortune telling. For a second, I was like, are they going to reveal that like Hua Cheng is like actually 300 years old or something, and he's been a ghost this whole time, and we just didn't know it? I wondered about that, but no. They find out that he has the Star of Misfortune, and we get his name. We get the Goshi's name. The Goshi is named Mei Nyan Chong. I wondered for a second if it was a character we'd already met before, but no. And he's in his 30s. He's a handsome guy, but his aspect is fortune telling. He's a great fortune teller. And it comes to find out that Xie Lian learned swordplay and spells not from the main Goshi, but from the deputies. But he never learned fortune telling because the Goshi said that it was a art of the streets and not something for the crown prince. But here's the thing. Again, Xie Lian, without realizing it, tied back to Hua Cheng because he did fortune telling on the cart. He told his fortune on the cart when they first met in volume 1. So, you know, Hua Cheng was like, oh, do you remember when we first met and you were, when that Goshi told my fortune, are you trying to tell me something? Are you trying to tell me something, Giga? And it's like, no, he's not. He doesn't remember. But yeah, it's just such a coincidence that we tie back to that, right? But an art of the streets, which also made me think of Xie Lian as a street performer. So maybe he learned fortune telling from there as a street performer. Maybe that was the case. I don't know. But we find out that he was born of the Star of Solitude that brings misfortune and destruction. Whoever touches him will have misfortune. Well, if that's the case, then the moment Xie Lian grabbed him off the wall, he was doomed. Everything started because he saved that child. And that's such an interesting thing, the idea that saving someone would lead to the entire destruction of everything around you. And it doesn't seem to be Hua Cheng's fault. He's just been chosen as this representative of it, right? And that whoever gets close to them will lose their lives. Well, that's funny because Xie Lian's not immortal anymore, so I guess it won't matter if he gets close to Hua Cheng. He's already immortal, so doesn't matter. But I love that Hua Cheng gets so mad at this point because he doesn't want the Goshi to say anymore, possibly because he's afraid of Xie Lian being scared, that he headbutts the Goshi. And nobody wants to touch him. Nobody wants to touch him. And all of the other Goshi, as he's filled with anguish and pain, they're all staying away from him. And he's like, I'm not. And the idea of the Star of Solitude is that they are fine. The person who's the Star of Solitude is fine. It's just everyone else around them. But it says it is nullified by meeting and encountering one's savior. Gee, I wonder who that could be. So the idea is that Hua Cheng may be this force of misfortune and destruction, but once he meets his savior, it's calmed down. So him and Xie Lian just have to stay together. They just got to stay together the rest of the series. They'll be fine. Right as rain. No problems. Oh my God. It's just kind of crazy, right? Now, they also said that Sha Po Long was the other great sign of misfortune. And the moment I read that, I was like, is that Bai Wu Sheng? Is the white calamity the other sign of misfortune? Is that Sha Po Long? Is that the great sign? Is it the white calamity? Because I'm thinking of two signs that are like the big calamities. It'd be that one. Maybe it's the Blackwater, but I feel like the white calamity freaks me out. But Xie Lian, against all odds, he comforts Hua Cheng and says, it is not your fault. You didn't ask for this. You didn't ask for this at all. You just ended up with this horrible misfortune. It's not your fault. Why? It's like, you can't help this. And he's like the only one that thinks that. Like, everybody else runs as soon as they hear his name and see him, but not Xie Lian. And that's such a cool parallel because now all of the gods, everyone in the entire world is fearful of him except Xie Lian. I'm like, it's so good. It's so good. So chapter 68. They managed to, what do they say here? They managed, like, Hua Cheng wailing like a beast. The moment they say he sounded like a grown man with his throat slit, I was like, oh my god, like MXTX. But this child just wailing, and everyone tells Xie Lian to let go, but he won't. And I feel like that's such a thing that's tying to now. Like they're telling him to let Hua Cheng go, but he won't. Xie Lian can't let him go. It's fate. It's fate tying them together. I feel like I want Xie Lian and Hua Cheng to both be, they can both be beings of misfortune, but together they cancel each other out. And it's the most beautiful thing in the world. That's what I want. That's what I want between the two of them. But yeah, but Xie Lian, he holds on to Hua Cheng as the pavilion burns. The swords are salvaged. Good to know. And he carries, I like that he carried Hua Cheng and he tucked him into the divan. He like just tucked him into bed. It was like, patted him on there, let him go. It's like, oh my god. And then him and Fengxian and Mu Qing face the Gouxi. And the Gouxi says a lot of things throughout these chapters that I thought, sometimes I was like, oh, I don't agree with that. But then there's other times I'm like, he makes a pretty good point. I like the Gouxi's character a lot. He thinks that Hua Cheng's fate is terrifying. He's like, he is clearly has a big curse saddled upon him. But he says that no fate can be changed without changing another. Because Xie Lian makes the comment, he's like, well, I'll just change fate. And the Gouxi's like, it's not that simple. He says that if you change, he's like, to change one fate is to impact another's. Which is true. He's like, if you save Hua Cheng, then you're putting someone else in danger. There's a butterfly effect. Like, it's going to affect someone. There's consequences to your actions. And even if you think you're doing something right, there's going to be something happen, and you don't know the outcome of that. So, on the one hand, I'm like, oh yeah, sure, that sounds great. But, in the other sense, it almost seems like Hua Cheng is kind of like this sacrifice to misfortune. They're like, well, fate just deemed it this way, so we can't change fate, so guess we'll just let him be. It feels like a commentary on people who are born under bad circumstances, and they have lots of bad things happen, and it's like the Lion King. Sometimes bad things happen. You can either run from it or learn from it, And so, but it seems like what the Gouxi is suggesting is, well, sometimes people are just born in bad situations, and we could help them, but then that'll impact other people. So sometimes you just have to let the bad things happen, and it's just the will of fate, and there's really nothing we can do about it. And that part of his logic, I was like, I don't like that, right? Even though it's sometimes perhaps true, it's still not something. I can see why Xie Lian's like, I don't like that. No, right? But I like the idea that we go back to the Gouxi talking about how the questions he asked Xie Lian when he was a child, when he was fortune telling. He's like, do you remember the questions I was asking you? I praised you for all these answers. Everything was great. But there is one question that I asked that your answer was like, And he was like 6 when he answered this question, right? And Xie Lian's kept that same idea. And it's the idea of the two people and one cup. Now this part's interesting because before he asked Xie Lian to repeat his answer, he asked Mu Qing and Fengxian their answers, which I think their answers kind of tie to the two ways that we view religion and the few ways that we view gods. You have Mu Qing. Mu Qing's like, well, I need to know the people. I need to know the circumstances. What are their merits? How are they worthy? What are they like before I make their decision? So there's Mu Qing, whose idea is all about judgment. It's like, no, you get the water based on what type of person you are. There's that. Then there's Fengxian, who's like, I don't want to decide. How about you all decide amongst yourselves? He's very hands-off. Decide amongst yourselves. All right? And then you have Xie Lian. I feel like Mu Qing and Fengxian's answers not only represent like two different types of deities that people worship. You have one that passes this divine judgment, and you have one that just has a hands-off approach and is like, y'all figure it out, right? I feel like they say something towards their personalities, like Mu Qing is judgmental and judges people, and Fengxian doesn't want to make the decision himself. He wants somebody else to figure it out. I think that speaks to their personalities. But then you have Xie Lian, who says, oh, we'll just get another cup. This idea of salvation. What the answer I was expecting though, and I'm surprised nobody said it, and I don't know if it's the right answer or not, is I was like, well, if you got 1 cup of water, why don't you just have both of them drink out of the same cup? Why not share it? Why don't you share the cup? Why do you need another cup? Just share the same cup. I was like, is that not possible? Can you not do that? I thought that was going to be the answer, that they just share the cup between them. And I thought that was going to be a representation of like the idea that the realms don't need to be separated. We don't need to choose one realm over the other. We don't need to choose the gods over the mortals or the mortals over the ghosts. We just can all share, right? I thought that's where it was heading, but it did not. So maybe we'll get there throughout the story. Maybe we'll come back to that story and like tie back to it. I don't know. But it's like, are the people, it's interesting that Xie Lian's like, why don't we just share the water equally? And the ghost, she's like, no, you don't understand. You can't make another cup. There's only 1 cup. I like the idea that the Goshi says, he tells Xie Lian, he's like, you can't expand the source. He's like, no expanding the source. You can't make more of something that's only 1. He's like, that doesn't work, right? You can't just make more of it, right? It's not like money that you can keep printing. There's only 1 item of this thing. You can't make another one of it. And Xie Lian, I like the Xie Lian. He's like, well, he's like, he did the very passive aggressive, like, I agree to disagree. And then just like, oh, well, thank you. And just, it doesn't acknowledge it, right? And the Goshi says that you don't understand, that you can't. He believes that Xie Lian is going to ascend at some point. He has utmost faith that Xie Lian is going to ascend. He's like, you're going to ascend at some point, and you're going to figure out that there have been others in the past with the same ideals as you, but they've not been able to get it done, right? He's like, others have thought like you in the past, but I feel like what the Goshi was trying to hint at, because Xie Lian's like, oh, well, they just haven't had as much determination as me, and they haven't been gods like I'm going to become. And the Goshi's like, yeah, okay. But I feel like the Goshi's also saying like, yeah, there have been others that have thought of you before, but they realize that the reality is not that easy. It's very easy to say you'll create another cup. It's very easy to say that you'll appease all parties. And this goes back to the whole concept that Xie Lian figures out through Donghua, through all this. He's like, the Goshi's like, yeah, you think you can solve all these problems. It's not easy, and you're going to have to pick and choose at times, right? He's like, you don't understand, right? And so then from there, Xie Lian's like, well, I will ascend and I'll become a power to behold. And it's like, it's like that, just that foreshadowing, like, are you going to be a power to behold? Because we know as the audience that it does not go very well, right? And I love that when he says that, he's like, I'm going to become this amazing god. And Fu Xin and Mu Qing, they like take pride in what he says. Like Fu Xin, like Feng Xin, I don't know why I said that way. Feng Xin has like a smile on his face. Mu Qing has a gleam in his eye. Like they're very proud of Xie Lian, which is going to hurt whenever he falls and then they end up abandoning him. Oh my God. But the Goshi says, okay, well, sure. Okay. You're going to ascend. We all know it's going to happen. You're special. You've always been special. And I've had faith that you're going to do this. But what is your path? What is the path to you as soon as you're God? What are you going to do? And I actually really like this. Goshi's like, you haven't walked enough. You're only 17. He's like, you need experience before you think you can do any of this. The crazy thing is he doesn't get that at that first ascension. He instantly ascends. Like at 17, it's like done. And what I feel like the Goshi was getting at is like, you really need to walk. And I feel like now, 800 years later, Xie Lian has walked the path and he's figured things out. The problem is that we left Xie Lian at the lowest point as he's been walking the path. And now I know that we're going to start book 3 out still in the past, but I'm like, I want to go back and be like, Xie Lian, no, you still are walking the path. You're trying to figure it out. Don't give up, right? It makes you as the reader be like, don't give up, Xie Lian. You can still walk the path and figure things out. But yeah. He's just like, no, you're too young. He's like, you're not mature enough. You have all these ideals, but you don't know how the world works. You need to walk around and see it. And I feel like Xie Lian now in the present has been walking around, but he's lost his way, right? He's been walking around gaining the knowledge that would let him know the path, but he's lost his way along the way, right? He's like, you need to go experience the world. And just to show Xie Lian and where he's at, he agrees that he wants to go. And he's like, oh, that's a great idea. But it's not to gain worldly experience and to see reality. his excuse for walking the path and leaving is he's like, well, I don't want to stick around and have to deal with my parents anymore. He's like, I don't want to do that. I don't have a palace to go to because it burnt down, so I might as well go off and do my own thing. I was like, oh my gosh, like Xie Lian, just like that teenage mentality, right? That teenage mentality. And I do love the Goshi's phrase here where he's like, no, people think that humans ascend to become gods and they fall to become ghosts. He's like, that's not it. They don't become gods or ghosts when they ascend or fall. They still are human. So humans stay humans. He's like, they may transpose beyond the corporal realm and become immortals, whether it's a ghost or a god, but they still were humans and they are humans. And we've seen that in action throughout this story. We've seen that as ghosts, they can still be corrupt like humans. We've seen that as gods, they can still be corrupt as humans. They just get to go up and down the ladder, but they're still the same. They just might be immortal and take a different shape or form, but at the end of the day, they are still human and were. So that part's fascinating. I love that kind of, that symbolism and that message that's being brought out at this point in the story, right? Because it is, Xie Lian thought that he'd become this great god and change the world and change fate, and Goshi's like, that's not how this works. He's like, no. And Xie Lian thought that he'd just become this paragon of virtue, but he's still human. And us seeing him fighting Qirong in the mausoleum is proof of that. At the end of the day, him and Qirong are still humans. They're just in this like super powered form, right? And so and the Goshi at the end, he like calms down. He's like, don't let the child worry you. Everyone has their fate. Like, they can't be helped. He definitely is a believer that you can't help fate. And he's like, someday when you mature, he's like, I pray you'll mature when you return. And there will be a time when you want to help. But when you want to, there'll be a time when there won't be a way to help just because you want to. And we see that with the Ascension. And so I'm really excited to get into that in book 3. Really excited. And so later that night, against all odds, Hua Cheng disappears. I'm assuming he woke up and freaked out and left because he didn't want to be singled out and hurt. I don't know. And then they say that even more so at age 17, Xie Lian, they say Xie Lian defeated a nameless ghost on Yin Yan Bridge and then ascended amidst roaring lightning and thunder, the shock of the 3 realms. So a nameless ghost. And we know he planted the flower, he planted the tree afterwards, and that's like the big event that shocked the heavens. But it's curious that it was a nameless ghost. It almost feels like his ascension was planned, but we know it's the will of the universe, so obviously it is. But that's interesting, right? The idea that immortality is given to gods who shed the troubles of... And then there's this thing at the end of the chapter, and I wrote it down. The idea that immortality is given to the gods who shed the troubles of the mortal body. Some stay in the heavenly realm, some wander around the mortal realm helping others, and some become hermits. Obviously, Xie Lian's in that middle category. But I wanted to point out this idea of the Tao thing, because I think this is interesting, and I think it ties to Xie Lian's ascensions. I could be wrong. Don't confirm or deconfirm my theories. Let me wallow it out. But my theory is, because they talk about that the formless will of Tao guides destiny. The gods cannot change fate. So we get the idea that gods cannot change fate. They almost tell us this after Xie Lian just got done saying he was going to change fate. Almost like to say he was wrong. It was like the narrator in a series being like, he was not correct. Right? And so they say they can't change fate. And the will of the universe decides an ascension. And they send a heavenly calamity or a task. And either the mortal passes and they ascend, or they don't. So, but there are 3 levels of ascension, right? There is the low level, which is after a death. There is the mid-level that comes from an insane amount of age. And then there is the high level that results from, it is a top ascension in daylight. So it basically is a top act in daylight. I think that the first ascension is the top one, because they describe it that the deeds must be so great that they shocked the wheel of fortune. Not the actual Wheel of Fortune, but So I think that's the first ascension. Like him planting the tree, him being like so like devout and kind. I think it shocked the wheel. And it said, or has the potential to change history. I think that Xie Lian definitely fulfilled that one in the first one, right? But also said that the deeds that cause that top ascension, they are amoral. There's no right or wrong to it. It doesn't matter if you killed a bunch of people or if you saved a bunch of people. That doesn't matter. It's just a great deed. Whether there's bloodshed involved or not, doesn't matter. But I think that's tied to the first ascension. I think that his third ascension is tied to him being in this world for so long. It's just tied to him living an insane amount of years. I think that's his third ascension. And then this death one, I think, is the second ascension. I think it has tied to death. Could be wrong on this, but it seems very curious that we have 3 levels of ascension. They all kind of seem like they could coincide with each of Xie Lian's ascensions. So we'll see, right? And it seems like after the low ascension, he was at his lowest point. So, and then he was at his height after the first one. So he's kind of like in the mid-range now. He could go either way. I don't know. I thought that was interesting, right? But it said that at the end, Xie Lian shed his mortal body and attained enlightenment. So, with that being said, there was some glossary things, and then obviously we have the song lyrics for the second song to listen to. But the name and character guide, I wanted to go through this. I haven't really looked at these because I didn't want spoilers, but I wanted to talk about, obviously I'm not going to read these word for word, but I want to talk about the name meaning. So Xie Lian means thank to wilt, sympathy, and love. Seems to fit. Hua Cheng is flower city, and San Long is third youth. And then Hong Air is red, friendly and diminutive. Little red. Feng Shin is wind, trust, and faith. Thought that was pretty cool. That makes sense because Feng Shin, like, he trusts Xie Lian and he was very loyal. And then Nanyang is like Nanyang is southern sun. You have Jun Wu, which means Lord or I. His heavenly title Shin Wu is divine might. Makes sense. Chanshu is 1,000 autumns, youth. And Taihua is magnificent peace, right? Very cool. And then Ling Wen is ingenious, literus. Look at Ling Wen. Heavenly title is the same. Ming Yi is illuminate, understand, instrument, or ceremony. So interesting that Ming Yi is like tied to illumination and understanding, and they're a spy. Mu Qing is yearning or affection, which tsundere, clearly. But his heavenly title, Shanjin, is enigmatic truth. Like he would give himself a title that meant like enigmatic truth. Okay, that's kind of like Feng Shin being like the southern sun. Well, the sun, like steady as the sun, right? You know, it's constant, right? Pei Ming is tender tea leaves. And his Ming Guang is bright illumination. Look at him being all suave. And then Pei Zhu is constellation. I like to think that's tied to Banyu and them looking at the stars together, but that's just my romantic headcanon. Zhan Qizhen, which we've rarely met, they're the god of the West that we've heard of but haven't officially met yet. Their name means power and authority, one, truth and genuine, and their heavenly title means stupendous hero. What a title! We've not officially met them yet, but I'm curious. Again, the quiz said I was most like that character in Hua Cheng, so I'm going to be curious to see what that's about. But then Shi Qingshang, which is the master, verdant green and blue, and mysterious black. I feel like the mysterious black's tied to the fact that their brother is the water master. We'll see. And then Banyu means half moon. Long Ying means youth or firefly. Makes sense. Qirong means face of sorrow. Or relative, tolerate, and face. I'm like, of course it does. It was all in the name, right? The night touring Green Lantern. There's like little things about each of them. And so then we have the ship sinking black water. We don't get a name meaning for that one. We don't even get a name. The waning moon officer. The waning moon officer. I want to read you the things for the ship sinking black water, the waning moon officer, and white no face because they're the most teasing and the most ominous. Like the ship sinking black water, all it says is of the 4 calamities, the ship sinking black water is a mysterious and reclusive water ghost that rules the South Sea. Like Hua Cheng, he won the bloody gauntlet at Mount Tonglu and wields the power of a supreme ghost. That's all it says. The waning moon officer. Hua Cheng's right-hand man, a subordinate, an all-around errand runner. He bears a cursed shackle on his wrist, which marks him as a banished heavenly official. He is feared and respected in the ghost city, but what kind of face lurks behind that daunting, mysterious mask? But they won't tell us. All we know is that they've been a cursed heavenly official, kind of like Xie Lian, but that's all we know. Okay. The white no-face is the most scary. It says, the white cloth calamity. One of the 4 calamities. Mysterious, cruel, and powerful enough to battle with the heavenly emperor himself. Truly, a supreme among supremes. He destroyed the kingdom of Shanla. Nothing about his death. Nothing about him. Scariest calamity. Not having it. Nope. And then Shanji's name means to declare and concubine, which is fun. And then we get Mei Nianqing. His name means plum blossom, to lecture, to long for. It's a nice name. I like that. And then the Shanli royal family. Yeah. Interesting. And so Xie Lian's father is of the ruling Xi, to thank to Wilt clan, and his mother is of the Min, to feel pity and commiserate with for. Oh, whoa, that's interesting. Yeah. And then Zhu An means a wish, surname, and peace. And he's a cultivator. Yeah. And so, yeah, we get a little bit of Yiming, means terrible, wretched fate, doom. Function means affections of a young woman. That's the sword tied to Xie Lian. Rui means like, as if, evil, or sword. Again, we don't know. I didn't read the things of those because I didn't want any spoilers, but I thought that was interesting. So, yeah, that's pretty much all that we get about everything here. Can't believe we're done with book 2. We're going to start book 3 next week. Exciting stuff, right? I'm very, very excited, especially after this. But I want to go ahead and listen to, and Huckleberry is in my way. They moved back here. I'm like, sorry, buddy. I do want to come here and listen to this song and the lyrics real quick and show you all it. I am plugging in my headphones because I don't want to do copyright and get this copyrighted, so we'll just listen to it here, right? So I am curious, though, so let's find out what's all up with this. So we are going to listen to Heaven Official's Blessing, the soundtrack for the Season 2 trailer, and we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Li Chengxi. Okay. I gotta adjust my hair. Curious what we get with this. Lyric-wise, you all were like, you have to listen to it. Waiting for the sound of the wind. Early morning to seal a city. I fell into the mortal world and disheartened the people several times. Oh no, is this about Xie Lian? Oh, come on now. Who is waiting for those stubborn eyes? As the cold night came, the tea cooled, and the red umbrella covered the rain. Oh yeah. This is about Xie Lian Hua Cheng. Okay. Let me be serious about my belief once again. Yeah, like Xie Lian standing up for what he believes for, right? I've never forgotten you from the old times, who fell from hundreds of years in the past. Oh, so don't ask about who guarded a lifetime. Is this from Xie Lian or Hua Cheng's perspective then? As the 3,000 lanterns hang up high, the flower and sword leave no traces. And that's the lanterns from Don't Ask About Life or Death. Cause the silvery butterfly already paints my old dreams. Ooh, okay. No matter how many reincarnations do you have in this world. Oh. I'll stay right here on that field. Okay, this is from Hua Cheng's perspective, isn't it? Oh. Is this from Hua Cheng? He's like, I'll always be there no matter where you go or how often you come back. Oh my God. Okay. I did like the trailer music. It was so nice. So Every unsettling lantern recalls memories. Wish you'd remember, Xie Lian. I recognize your red silhouette. Ah! Okay. Oh, it's rare for someone to be selfless. Oh my gosh. The sorrowful thinking starting to disappear because they're together, because they have each other. Not able to break sincerity of an entire starry night. They just need to stay together. It'll be fine. We ascend, who ascend into heaven and who are tossed to unknown ghosts and gods. Any kind of right and wrong can hurt people like a knife. Oh my gosh, it's these chapters! Yeah, that's these chapters. Yes! Like, if something happens, whether it's right or wrong, it's going to affect someone either way. Oh. See, if they just hang out together and you guys let them go off on their own, then they'll cancel each other out. I just want them to end up together. And I want Xie Lian to realize who it is. Ugh. Oh no. I love that picture of them too, with like from the red wedding. I'm so ready for volume 3, y'all. You have no idea. Ah. Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. Oh. Well, that was incredibly good. Oh my gosh. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay. All right. It's all good. Oh my gosh. Oh man, y'all. I've loved you, Volume 2. You've really set things up and you've been a lot of fun, but I'm going to be honest. Volume 3, I'm so ready. I'm so ready. And now it seems like everything's come full circle from Volume 1. We know what we know. Everything was set up in Volume 1 and we know how we got there now in Volume 2. So we know how we got there in Volume 2 and now it's going to be like, okay, well, what do we do with this now? Because we know about Xie Lian's ascension. We've gotten back, come full circle with that. We've heard rumors about the descension and the White Calamity. Are we going to touch base on that in Volume 3? Is Volume 3 all going to be Book 2? And then are we going to start Book 3 with Volume 4? What are we doing with that? I don't know. All I ask is that please do not spoil me. I've been so surprised by this novel, and we are only 2 volumes in. Only 2 volumes in. And there's been so many twists and turns. I just ask to not be spoiled because I want to experience this and be surprised as you all were. So yeah. But yeah, this was amazing. I loved this. I hope you all enjoyed this as well. But I am so ready to dive into the next volume. And we'll be starting that next week. And we'll have chapter 86 of the Manhua, volume 3 starting. It's going to be a fun time. So, in the meanwhile, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more Heaven Officials Blessing.